Hello, everyone. Welcome to an episode of
Yakkin about Bojack.
Yes. Hello, and welcome to episode 6. Melina, what did you think of this episode?
We're halfway through, and there's so much drama that's going on
Yeah.
everywhere.
It feels like I actually thought we were getting to the end because some of the events from this episode I actually thought happened in the finale.
Oh, wait, seriously?
Yes, I was trying to remember when the stealing of the Hollywood sign happened, the D in the Hollywood sign. And I thought it was a finale thing. And I was so shocked. I was like, episode 6, it's already here? Like, the title gave it away. The title of this episode is A Story is a D Story. Came out August 22nd, 2014, with the rest of season 1. We're now 6 out of 12 episodes, right in the middle, as Melina mentioned. And the summary for this episode: Bojack and Diane return from their publishing trip and have definitely bonded. Bojack inserts himself into Mr. Peanut Butter and Diane's relationship. The two have a petty fight of impressing Diane with more and more lavish displays of wealth, culminating in Bojack committing a drunk heist of the Hollywood signs D, hereby called Hollywoo. In an effort to hide the crime, Bojack enlists Mr. Peanut Butter's help, but Mr. Peanut Butter swoops in to steal the gesture as his own and ultimately proposes to Diane. Todd tries to decide what gang to join in prison.
Yes, drama
Drama
everywhere.
everywhere. I also liked how the B storyline,
Mhm.
Todd in the prison situation, that I didn't expect it to like connect to like the A storyline. Like, I know it was kind of just like funny that Bojack kept forgetting about Todd. It actually connected in the end in this sort of like weird way. You're like, oh, I guess Todd's problem is resolved now. But oh man, it was hilarious. Poor Todd, man.
I know, he just wanted to get out. He managed to talk to Bojack on the
Yes,
call, and
Bojack
then
ultimately did. Bojack several times heard that he was in prison. He was like, "I don't want to hear your problems."
yeah.
This is the same guy who, what, 2 episodes ago when Todd was gonna move out,
Uh,
who freaked
yes,
out?
yes, and then sabotaged.
Yes, and it's like now that Bojack has his new target, Diane, he cares a little bit less for Todd.
hmm
Isn't that interesting?
I told you he treated Todd badly before and still treats him badly.
Yeah, he takes him for granted a lot, and I think that, like, this is where I'm jumping into Bojack's relationship with Diane. But I
hmm
think there was a hint of this last episode, and I should have asked you to make a prediction about this, but I again thought this episode was the finale. Oh, I should do my research. I'm so sorry.
Oh.
Melina, did the note that Bojack wrote to Diane, does that mean something different now that you know how Bojack feels? Do you want me to refresh you on the note? I don't.
Yeah, it refreshed me on the note.
Bojack's letter, he says he likes that Diane is a good person and he understands she's not appreciated in her life.
hmm
Mostly he was referring to her family, but maybe he means this episode also Mr. Peanut Butter. He says she owns bags. She brings her own bags to the grocery store. She's organized to go places. She chews gums on planes. And I think he also likes how him and Diane get along intellectually. But
Okay.
that wasn't in the letter. That's just me because the jokes they were making were kind of cruel to Mr. Peanut Butter. It was kind of like, we're too smart. Look at us. Look at us being fancy. That's my fancy voice.
Very nice. Very nice. And then Mr. Peanut Butter is just like, I don't understand anything. What's going on?
No, I know. Oh my goodness. I know Animal Catch. The tennis balls in his trunk killed me. When he opens his
Oh
trunk at the airport
yeah.
and the
Is it because
tennis
he's a
balls come.
dog?
Yeah, I think it's because he's a dog. I was shocked he didn't just chase it and they would just do a gag. It would be 10 out of 10. But he invented the term honey. He's a serious dog now, in serious relationship.
Well, the serious part I think is actually questionable.
Okay, let's get into that. So you think Mr. Peanut Butter, first of all, is not just a happy dog and is not in a serious relationship? I'm confused how these work. Melina, what do you think about Mr. Peanut Butter and Diane?
So I had a feeling, so Mr. Peanut Butter in this episode we saw that he was more than just happy. He could actually be jealous because
Yes.
he's noticed that something's going on between
Oh, true. He had a
Bojack and Diane.
conversation with Bojack explicitly.
Mhm.
So he did
Mhm.
notice that. But he
Mhm.
handled it in a very like mature way, maybe more so than I would think a regular happy dog. He had the emotional maturity to identify it and then told
Mhm.
Bojack, I don't want you to have that He actually was very controlling, now that I
Mhm.
think about it, right?
Eh, I
He
don't think.
said
What do you say?
I think he wanted Diane to not see Bojack anymore, but then Bojack's like, "But we
Oh
work together," and
yeah.
he caved right away because, but neither of them talked to
Yeah.
Diane first.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at that time, Bojack didn't know his feelings.
Okay, true.
Well, yeah, I
Mm.
don't think he really realized until
When
after,
you
like.
buy a restaurant for someone, I think a part of you knows your feelings. Maybe he hadn't admitted it to himself. You're right. But
But in terms of Mr. Peanut Butter and Diane's relationship, I did notice. I forget which episode there was, but there was. I think it was the one involving a rock opera,
yes.
where she wanted to go somewhere, and he's like, "Oh, let's go to eat tacos instead," or something like
Yes.
that. And then she was like, "Oh, we already have something planned before. You know, I really wanted to go to that." And he was like, "Oh no, I just want to go eat tacos," kind of thing.
Yes.
And eventually, like, he did get her another gift, kind of to make up for it. I think that was actually
Yes.
in the episode where Wayne showed up first.
Oh, true, and Wayne was pointing out the problems in their relationship. And how Mr. Peanut Butter in that case too, he was talking about how he's not intellectually compatible and he's too distracted and the
Hmm.
same points we made last week about positives that Mr. Peanut Butter is definitely like a light in a lot of the
Hmm.
negativity in Diane's life. He is
Hmm.
also he doesn't really appreciate some of the nuance of the emotional struggles of her life and sort of empathize with her. He did a little bit last episode, like she called him after her father passed away.
Hmm. A
And that was
little.
yeah, a little. It was just like, "I'll give you a hug when you come back." And maybe that's the reason why he's been so romantic when she returned.
Yeah. I don't really from the few interactions we've seen of them, I don't really know if he really likes her for who she is, or if he just likes the idea of having a girlfriend who cares for him.
What an astute observation. You are right. Mr. Peanut Butter doesn't seem to really understand Diane as much as he seems to just like just having Diane. Do you know what I mean? Like having
Hmm.
Diane as a person who exists.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting concept. Like I think I've seen it in some of the books I've read about when you're in a relationship with someone. Are you allowing them to be a full person in that relationship, or are you just putting them in a box? In some ways,
Hmm.
it's not like Mr. Peanut Butter is restricting her. Like he still wants her to work and whatever, but he's kind of put her in the box of like girlfriend box, and
Hmm.
he's not really seeing her as like complex Diane. And I think that's why Bojack feels like he's the one who can appreciate Diane. Going back to that letter, so
Hmm.
who do you think is better for Diane, Bojack or Mr. Peanut Butter?
Uh, I think they're both problematic for her, to be
Ooh.
honest.
I have to say, when I first watched this episode,
Hmm.
I wanted Bojack and Diane to get together.
Hmm.
Because even though Bojack and Diane were problematic, I think we saw a lot more of them on screen having difficult conversations.
Hmm.
And because of that, I was like, oh, I see them together. But I also have a theory.
Okay.
And that theory is, why do you think Bojack wrote Diane the letter last episode?
Because he cared about her?
And I think our hypothesis was he cared about her and he noticed she was upset when she went like haywire and like around the bar and crashed everything.
Yes.
But what do you think? Like, do you think it was just he cared about her? Like, why do you think he suddenly cared about her? He was about to tell Pinky Penguin that Diane wasn't fit to write his memoir because she had too
Hmm.
perfect of a life.
Oh yeah, and then after seeing her family, he then realized she didn't have too perfect of a life.
Yes,
Well, I feel like part of it was that he cared for her, but part of it is also like his budding realization of his interest in her as a potential romantic partner.
I see.
Especially in this episode, I think he was saying like how like she was the first, I don't know, first woman in a long time at least
Yeah.
to like understand him and listen to his problems and things like that.
Yes. So my theory is that one, Bojack got to see her be vulnerable,
Mhm.
which sort of sealed this pact. Because the reason he was saying he was uncomfortable to Pinky Penguin earlier in that episode is that
Mhm.
he was being very vulnerable about the imperfections in his life,
Mhm.
emotionally vulnerable to Diane as part of the memoir. And it seemed that Diane was getting good, as you mentioned in her not manipulations, her pushing, her methods at getting information for the memoir. So he's really being vulnerable with her, and he didn't feel safe. That's why he was telling Pinky Penguin, like, I don't think Diane is like damaged enough to tell the story. But
Oh
now that
yeah.
he sees Diane is also damaged, he feels like they mutually share a degree of vulnerability.
Mhm.
So my theory is that the reason he started writing the letter and the reason why Bojack has these feelings is maybe he does like Diane, but it has to do with this is the first time he's been vulnerable with someone else.
Mhm.
In that way that okay, Melina, you and I have both done this, but the listeners do not know. We have gone through the 36 questions to fall in love. I did we ever finish it?
I don't think we finished it. I think we went through maybe two sets at most.
Yeah, I think we didn't do the last set. So Melina, we're not getting married. I'm so sorry. We didn't go through all of them.
Oh
Yeah, that's
no.
how it works. We have to cancel the wedding. We have to tell the guests. You know, it was a COVID wedding anyway, so there weren't many guests. I jest. But that was like, especially when we did that, we were in a group with our very close friends. How did you find that experience?
Hmm. That was a while ago. That was
Yeah, we did it in
pre-COVID.
2 sessions. Pre-COVID, it got really intense for me. I remember we were crying, and it was
Mhm.
very vulnerable, like, we shared stories we hadn't shared with, anyone else. Like, I
Mhm.
still think about those answers. I still think about how we felt, how, like, there's a sense of trust, and there's a sense of vulnerability, and just a
Mhm.
shared sense of mutual vulnerability. And underlying to this whole method to me is that vulnerability
Mhm.
creates like this emotional connection, especially
Mhm.
mutual vulnerability, and that's where you really get that sense of intimacy. And
Okay.
my theory is that Bojack doesn't do that often. He doesn't really seem like the person who lets people in.
Okay.
But because of
Okay.
Diane's job, she
Mhm.
has to do that. She has to find
Mhm.
out about him. And now because of the situation with her father's death, he's seen a mutual they've shared this moment of mutual vulnerability. Like he's been vulnerable and sharing about his parents. She's been gleaning stuff and he's
Okay.
found something about her. So I don't mean to say that mutual vulnerability means that, your relationship is not genuine. It can still be genuine. Like that is an important part of it. I do think that because it's related to Diane's nature of work, I don't
Mm.
know if I'm a diehard Bojack and Diane shipper as much because that's something I'm realizing and cluing into.
I think that's a good point that you bring up about how vulnerability creates an emotional closeness. Because I think that some people do mistake emotional closeness with I'm interested in this person in a
Yes.
romantic or other
Yes.
way.
And as an example with us, like we're friends
Hmm.
platonically. I just want to clarify listeners, we're platonic friends.
But
But
what the ring was a lie? I was like shopping everywhere for one.
I'm sorry, and you had to get down on your knee, and now your knee is bruised. I know I'm so rude. No, but like Melina and I are platonic friends, but I highly encourage you with your close friends to also do emotional intimacy questions because like strong friendships are built on being able to be vulnerable and being connected with people. And yeah, and it's
Hmm.
not just in your romantic partner, but it's often a prerequisite for a romantic relationship as well. You want to have some degree of emotional intimacy.
Yes, it's definitely um important. I think for the in terms of Diane and Bojack, so I didn't really see them together. So I think one of it was that well, they both had so many issues that
Yes.
they bring. And not saying that just because a person has issues they can't have relationships with other people,
Yes.
but with the emotional in the vulnerability and just the
Yes.
closeness, like I feel that he might be relying on her just to be have a source of someone to like count on.
Yes.
It might come to a similar situation where like he just relies on Todd to have someone around. He
Yes.
might just want her to be like someone there to like make him feel better kind of thing.
Yeah, it's more that she serves a purpose in even writing the memoir right now of making Bojack feel
Mhm.
better, to get this off his chest, to be an emotional crutch for him. Yes, he helped her with the passing of her father, but I
Mhm.
and dealing with her family, but I don't think Bojack is ready. I mean, it's a disservice to say that. I don't think he's ready to be emotionally there for someone else, especially based on what we know so far about him. Who knows? He can surprise us.
Well, I mean, he still kind of ditched Todd in jail, so I'm
Yes.
not really expecting much from him.
Oh no, oh
At least
no.
not in this season.
Yeah, yeah,
Or maybe in the finale or next season, but not in this season, not yet.
yeah, yeah. So, speaking of Todd, what did you think of Todd's storyline and the 2 prison gangs? The 2 prison gangs, as a reminder to the listeners as well, there were the Aryan White skinheads and the Latin Kings. I don't know if I got the name right for the Nazis, but, yeah, those are the 2
Mhm.
groups.
I would be scared if I was in Todd's shoes.
Yeah, Todd is so chill, but I think that's his vibe. He's just going with it.
Yeah. The hippie vibe.
They'd be fine. Also, I think it's a degree of privilege. Like, he's in a position where 2 groups want him. Like, the
Yes.
Latin Kings look diverse, but I will also note that Todd's last name is Chavez,
Mhm.
which just lend him to the Latin Kings, but
Mhm.
he is in fact white, so or at least white passing, so the skinheads are are ready to accept him.
Mhm. Mhm. I think that's really reflective of like of people, especially I guess in race and ethnicity, but also other things. But we'll just use race as an example. Like a lot of people who were, say, children of like interracial couples, or who were like from one country and
Yeah,
then came to another and grew up in this other
yeah.
country, and then they're like not really one culture, not really the other culture, like
Being
this in
like a third
between.
culture or a second culture kid. I often feel like a third culture
Mhm.
kid in that degree, like and this is an interesting like we're really pulling this one a little bit far, but I totally agree with you. There's that feeling of not really belonging to any group, and there is a sense that you want to
Mhm.
belong to a group, especially in a place like prison where it could mean your safety. But
Mhm.
yeah, you don't when you're a third culture kid, when you're even like a second culture kid, you sometimes don't feel like you belong to any properly because you sort
Mhm.
of gone the middle. And I'm assuming it's the same for interracial children or like mixed children of mixed heritage. Um, I can't. I don't have firsthand experience with that, but I do have firsthand experience being, I guess, a third culture kid.
Mhm. And similar with how Todd was in the show, where he can see benefits of both sides, because it's
Yeah.
like there are always benefits of both sides. Well, I mean, I guess some people
Yeah, like,
might
I
like
wanna
really.
clarify, I don't think there are any benefits to Nazis. I was a little uncomfortable, like, I remembered this vaguely as a storyline, and it was
Mhm.
casual, and it's kinda funny because it's funny because Todd is considering to joining the Nazis, like, he hasn't, like, straight out just said no, which you would think he should have. But in light of recent events, we are recording this in 2021, early 2021, there was an insurrection on the Capitol, there has been an increase in white supremacy and Nazis, neo-Nazis in the US. It was less funny when I watched it this time around. I'm like, "Oh, I really wish Todd would've just been like, I'm sorry, but no thank you," because that should have been the answer. I realized the ludicrousy was the humor in this episode, but I was like,
Mm.
Recent events have made this less funny."
Yeah. Although I think that specifically in the lines he was saying, like he agrees with the Latin kings socially, but he
Yes.
agrees with the Aryan people fiscally.
Yes, that was
Yeah.
also, I think, a reference to, like some political references where people
Uh,
talk about how between the and I think this is actually supposed to be now that I think about it, is this like an actual analogy for the Democrats and the Republicans in the US because it's so polarized?
oh.
Oh my god, how did I just miss that until now? But, oh my god, maybe that's what it was, and we're just not smart enough to realize this. But, yeah, a lot of people say they like the financial and the fiscal responsibility that the Republicans have versus
uh,
the Democrats are like, "Where are they getting the money for this?" And here's the real thing, it's called taxes and making sure that everybody is taxed, especially those who can afford to pay their taxes. Cough, cough. And no, I that's like the democratic approach. I actually remember when I was I think I joined my workplace or when I started working a few years back, one of my coworkers told me I said the same thing. I was like I was always told that, the more conservative party tend to be more fiscally responsible and support like sort of the economy better. And
hmm.
so like that's better for like for our general budget. And then he was like, this is a generalization that doesn't hold because both parties have policies, and like obviously there's more than two parties in Canada. But parties have different policies on how they're going to fund it. But you can get funding in more ways than just like supporting businesses. You can get money from like increasing taxes on a scale to like businesses and whatever.
Hmm.
So I think sometimes when people say it's fiscally responsible, it's kind of like that joke that I think of it as like that's what everyone says, but is that really the reason? Because there are ways you can support your social causes without having to do these specific fiscal decisions. Um, but yeah, you're oh my god, it was
Huh.
totally about Republicans and Democrats, wasn't it?
I
Wasn't it? Oh my
did
god,
not realize.
in light of politics in 2020 and 2021 and 2016.
We get
Wow.
many revelations from this show.
So many
Literally.
revelations. I can't I'm sorry. I'm still reeling, Melina. It takes me so long to process stuff. No, I did wanna have 2 sorry, I did wanna have 1 link in the description. I will put it to a TED Talk. I watched it a while back. That TED Talk is about a man who was, part of the neo-Nazi movement in the US and how he got out of that movement. So, if anyone wants to know about that, I do think it's relevant, to this episode.
Yeah. This is one part of the episode. The
Yes.
other part, the other juicy drama going on, is Bojack and Mr. Peanut Butter and Diane's.
Yeah! But
Ooh.
one last
Oh,
thing before we move on.
okay.
Todd's bail amount. Do you know how much it was?
Oh, it was like $50 something,
It
right?
was $50, and in this episode, Bojack bought what? He bought so much more than $50 for Diane. He just his new infatuation is Diane. He bought a restaurant. I'm sure a restaurant is more than $50.
I don't know why I forgot how rich he was supposed to be. Like
Yes.
when him and Mr. Peanut Butter was fighting over how much they were gonna like on the house and
Yes.
whatever buying all that. I'm just like, right, they're rich.
They're rich. They are wealthy. They need to keep working so that, like, Princess Carolyn sells money or they stay relevant, but they technically have enough to, like, survive. They
Mhm.
don't really need to work, but I think that they both work because, they wanna keep a steady source of income, I guess, and they wanna help their careers, still stay relevant.
Well, I mean, Mr. Peanut Butter, I think he works because he likes the show, but Bojack's not really working anymore.
No, but I think Bojack, even in the interview in the very beginning, when he was talking to in that Charlie Rose segment, he talks about how, his show is not Ibsen. And I think there is a degree of like Bojack intellectual like elitism that he hasn't really processed, but he thinks his work he loved working on Horsing Round. It made him famous, it made
Mm.
him rich, but he understands it's not like highbrow entertainment. And he feels like he judges himself for not being part of like highbrow
Oh.
entertainment. I don't know if this makes it seem bad, but he definitely I think sets really high standards for himself. That's what I'm trying to say. I think Bojack sets high standards for himself. So he wants to
Hmm.
be like a real actor in some degree, and that is
Okay.
him and how Bojack values himself.
Okay. Hmm. That might explain some of his general behavior then, in the
Yeah.
sense that, like, some people who have high expectations of themselves, they might, because they're not happy with themselves, they might try to put other people down to make themselves feel better,
Yeah, which is
or
Bojack.
yeah.
Which is Bojack.
So that does help. In addition to all his like family trauma and all that, that also okay. There's a, eh.
Yeah. With the other thing that I wanted to bring up about this, like they bought a bunch of stuff, right? Like
Mhm.
they were going over and beyond. None of them talked to Diane, and Diane at the end when Bojack talks to her and he's like, "You need a Diane thing." Like he tells her what Diane would want. Why she didn't feel that great when Mr. Peanut Butter was doing all these big things, or when Mr. Peanut Butter stole the D, put it and gave it to Diane. She didn't feel great about it, which was Bojack's idea in the first place. But he like says it's because it's a Mr. Peanut Butter thing. It's not a you thing, and he describes to Diane what would be a her thing. And
Mhm.
I think at that point Bojack realized he actually cares for her, and this was like an honest way of showing that affection.
Mhm.
But why didn't he do that?
I still think he didn't really realize his thoughts and feelings until like
I
he
see.
was in that conversation. Also, he was drunk when he stole that D. So
Yeah, he was drunk when he stole that D, so it probably wasn't him thinking, but afterwards he says this to Diane, and that's when Mr. Peanut Butter literally does what Bojack said was a Diane thing. Says, "I hated the fact Mr. Peanut Butter lied," right? But he says, "There's no cameras, it's just me and you. I made this
mm,
album of just our feelings." And that is it screams a Diane thing, right? It's much more
mhm.
intimate, it's small. It talks about their emotional connection. And then the cameras came. What did you think about Mr. Peanut Butter lying and having cameras?
That was one of the reasons why I was like, I'm not sure if Diane is a girlfriend to him because he cares for her as a person, or if Diane's a girlfriend for the sake of being a girlfriend
Yeah,
and
for
for
the
him to
sake
have
of
this
it
like
being good for his
lifestyle.
lifestyle, for his brand,
Mhm.
for selling more merch, for being good
Mhm.
for his reality TV show. Yeah.
Like, there's a possibility that he's just completely oblivious and thinks like she would like that kind of thing, and like
Yeah.
everything that he's doing, she would like it, which some people do believe
But
that.
if
They're,
he's been
but
in a relationship with her, I don't think they shared how long, and he should know whether or not she would like that type of thing, right?
hmm yeah, I mean, I don't think he cares about her enough to, or
Pay
doesn't have
attention.
the social, social
Emotional
intelligence.
maturity?
Is that the
Yeah, or the
word?
emotional intelligence, EI, yeah. Maybe. He's just happy because he's a dog, Melina. You can't hate him. He's cute. He's a fluffy dog.
When doesn't matter if he's a dog, if he goes starts becoming obnoxious, whatever. It's
Yeah,
like he's
this
going to my
was an
bad books.
episode in which everybody was obnoxious. Melina, you were just like obnoxious, obnoxious. Look at them just like brandishing their wealth just like crazy at that restaurant. I was like, "Oh my goodness." The other thing that was so hilarious was the D. After the Hollywood sign D was stolen, they
Mm,
started referring to it as Hollywoo. What did you think
Hollywood.
about that?
I like it, Hollywood.
Yeah, I like how the name of the city is now depicted by that sign. It's like not
Yeah,
like they put the sign there because that's the name of the city. No, no, no. The sign depicts the name of the city.
and it's like an
Uh,
adorable name, like Hollywood. I wonder if they're gonna keep calling it that.
we'll find out. We'll find out.
Okay.
That was a very I'm not spoiling you at all. And I did want to have some animal catchers. I think I didn't get too many this time. Did you get any animal catchers?
I think I was too caught up in the drama to notice.
There was only one, which was the bear in the beginning, because he calls her honey. And then Mr. Peanut said he
Oh,
made up the word honey. And then
yes.
the bear comes over, and I was like, oh, poor bear. And then Mr. Peanut Butter's tennis balls. Those are the only two, like, I think, animal things, right?
There probably were others, but I was just caught up in the drama to
Yeah,
really notice.
this is what I mentioned. As you keep watching, you forget that they're animals, Melina.
That's because there's other things to worry about. It's like Zootopia. I didn't care that they were foxes and rabbits and things.
The last thing I want to mention is Princess Carolyn and Diane met,
Oh,
which
yes.
they've met multiple times, but they had a
Yes.
confrontation where Princess Carolyn was a bit hostile to Diane, and she told Diane that Miss Bojack liked her. What
hmm
did you think about Princess Carolyn's action?
I thought that was part of their scheme. Like, I thought they needed her to distract Diane, and that was just her way of distracting Diane.
But I think a better way to distract Diane would have been like, why don't we talk about the book and the pages? She didn't have to tell Diane about Bojack's feelings. First of all, I think that definitely instigates some things and sabotages Bojack. Like, it's not in the best interest for Bojack to say that if you're Bojack's friend. And number
Mm.
two, it was definitely like she was saying, how does Diane, have two men? How is she doing all this? It was very much, I think, from a place of like jealousy from Princess Carolyn, which I like Princess Carolyn, and I think she claimed to be really good at separating her life as an agent and
Um,
ex-girlfriend to Bojack. But I thought, to me, I was like, oh, there are multiple people jealous. Bojack is jealous, Mr. Peanut Butter is jealous, and Princess
right.
Carolyn's jealous.
I guess especially if she and Bojack were in a relationship before, and she was kind of like, assuming she liked him a lot.
Yeah,
It's
they
kind of
were
like a slap in the
together.
face.
Yeah,
Like,
I think they were together for quite a while, and like I don't remember them saying how long, but Princess Carolyn did mention that he didn't commit to her when she wanted
uh-huh,
kids, and Bojack stole her a D from the Hollywoo
uh-huh.
sign.
Yeah, she was probably like, this is such a slap in the face. Like, we've been together for
Yeah.
so long, and they only met for I don't know how long, and totally head over heels and love and for at least in her mind, like
Yeah, in her
head
mind.
over heels. Yeah.
Yeah. So I felt a little bad for Princess Carolyn, but yeah.
That'd be interesting. Although I also don't think Mrs. Carolyn and Bojack would really get along in
No,
a
I
relationship.
100% agree. I never like I remember the first time I watched it, I did ship Bojack and Diane. I've since then rescinded it. You are right. Bojack is problematic for her, but Bojack is even more problematic to Princess Carolyn. Like, I think their work relationship, even though Diane is also working with Bojack, I do think Princess
hmm
Carolyn's situation it's worse.
Yeah. Well, that's because she's supposed to be his agent too.
Yeah. And that's a really complicated situation. I don't think that's good at all. Yeah.
Well, who knows? Maybe just like all the Disney movies, love will conquer all.
Who knows? But let me ask you, what do you think will happen next?
Well, I don't think love will conquer all. I can tell you that.
Ooh, we have a pragmatist. I think that'll fit the show well. What do you think will happen instead of love conquering all?
I think Wayne will make an appearance again.
Okay.
Not exactly sure what he will do. Try to meddle, I guess. Try to get her back. We still need to find out where Herb shows up because
Yeah.
Bojack did call him, so I assume they are gonna meet sometime, and I assume that happened in this season as well.
Okay.
I'm even wondering for even Mr. Peanut Butter and Diane's relationship, will that actually survive? I think it might if Mr. Peanut Butter grows and develops,
Okay.
and that might take more than one season to do it, but who knows? Lots of apparently emotions can happen like crazy in this show, so
Yeah.
who knows? Todd got out of jail, which is nice.
He didn't even have to pay the $50. He saved it. He saved that $50.
Yeah.
How do you think Diane and Mr. Peanut Butter's wedding will work out if they have one? Like, what do you think the wedding's gonna look like?
If Mr. Peanut Butter had not, okay, well, I'm assuming that if they were to have one, like Mr. Peanut Butter would have see her as like a person, not just like a girlfriend.
I see.
Um, and then he would probably not make it super like big and extravagant. He would probably want to do something that he likes, but also something that she likes.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I feel that given how Diane has like these conflicting feelings, not from just Wayne before, but also with Bojack, and like how she's like,
So you actually we haven't addressed that because no one asked Diane. So you think
mhm.
Diane has feelings for Bojack?
Well, I don't know if she has feelings. I think that in relationships, like some people, like they might say some person is in a committed relationship when someone else is like understands their emotional like issues,
Yes.
they might start to develop an emotional closeness to
Connection.
them.
Yeah. Hmm.
Whether or not that's feelings is another question.
Yeah.
But I think that because Diane has had that vulnerability with Bojack because of
Yes.
of what happened with her family, like she might start to see issues with her relationship with Mr. Peanut Butter. Whether or not that means she likes Bojack is another question.
Okay, that's true. That's true. I think that's a good point. Like it'll highlight sometimes to your partner what it is, and you can take a
Mhm.
mature route and have a conversation with your partner about what you want to see in that relationship,
Mhm.
or you can be like, no, I don't want to work on this anymore, and then move on to something else. And that there are so many different options, and it's also whether Mr. Peanut Butter will step up to that challenge if she does
Mhm.
provide him feedback.
Mhm.
Okay, so I will keep you posted on if any of these predictions work out. Um,
Okay.
we don't know what the blackmailers yet, so that is interesting. Do you think they'll come up next episode?
At this point, I feel like they're just gonna be a running gag. Like they're just gonna keep trying, and they just gonna keep like ignoring
Yeah,
them.
yeah. I think that's a fair guess, yeah. And because we missed this last time, I do have to ask you, do you think Bojack is a good or bad person?
Because I think before the previous episode was when he sabotaged Todd, and I was saying that
Yes.
he
That was like the previous. That
yeah
was Zoe's and
previous
Zelda's, yeah.
oh yes, and I was saying that he's like he's doing things that can hurt people. Again, for me, good and bad is very nuanced.
Yes.
I feel that in this episode we don't really see
We do see him, well, we don't see it on screen, but he does commit a crime. He steals the D, tries to cover it up.
well. I mean,
I is it inherently bad to try to break up? Like, he is actively trying to break up Mr. Peanut Butter and Diane. Like, that to me is you're right,
is
it's
he?
nuanced. Yeah, well, like, he knows Mr. Peanut Butter and Diane are in a relationship. He didn't have a ride home, so he decides to not only get a ride home, but then join them on their dinner date, and
Oh,
then decides to try to impress Diane while she's on a date with
oh
her
yeah.
boyfriend, right? So, like, to me, that's not really like, I don't think that's bad. I do think it's not good.
It's not good.
It's not, like, super ethical. He didn't help his friend when he was in jail,
Mm,
um, and he was very self-centered. Does that make him bad?
I would definitely say
Mm,
he's selfish.
definitely selfish, but I do think that one
Yeah.
of the points you brought up last time that I think is great is, like, it's not an unredeemable point. Like, if we consider bad to be a point of no return, he definitely hasn't gotten there yet. He's
Yes.
not a good person. I can say that.
He.
To me, I don't think he's a good person yet.
Yeah, not yet. Like even say in the last episode when he was with the letter for Diane, it's
Yeah.
like that might
He
seem like a
gained
good
Yeah,
quote
he
unquote good
gained a lot
thing.
of good points there, but then he also did
Well,
so much.
I don't know if he can gain good points from that either, because
Yes.
I think that could still be just like he's being selfish and he's trying to not well maybe I don't know if he was intentional, but that was like a way for her to like him more, or for him to get her to
Ooh,
like him
that's
more.
part of him getting on her good side. As
Yeah,
part of, like, a way for him to gain
yeah,
Diane because he's started to maybe catch feels already.
yeah. Even if he may or may not be aware of it.
Yes.
Yeah. So he's we'll just say for now he's selfish and obnoxious.
Yeah, I don't think he's bad yet, just yet. He's just not good. He hasn't done some great things.
Mhm.
Yeah, we'll see how your predictions work out next week, Melina. No spoilers, but let's tune in next time when we
I
watch episode
swear.
7 and find out what happens in Hollywood. Yakkin' About Bojack is produced, recorded, and edited by Melina and Aditi. Music is by Podcast Co's royalty-free album Keep Calm and Podcast, the song One Fine Day. All thoughts in this podcast are personal opinions. If you or someone you know is experiencing issues with addiction, substance abuse, or any of the topics mentioned in this episode, please know there is hope and seek professional help.